Good afternoon. Thanks, Yash, for having me here. What I want to talk about, I know the topic given to you was personal branding. Personal branding in India is a relatively new concept per se. It has got huge applications in learning and development. For example, anybody can teach on strategy. Anybody can teach on marketing. But the person who comes for that class does not come because of the topic. He or she comes because of the person who is teaching. The person's brand is very important. I don't know how many of you have read the book First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham. In that, Marcus Buckingham actually makes a comment. He says, whenever people join, they join the organization, but when they leave the manager. I want to make a correction there. I don't know how many of you are in talent acquisition. You'll be able to recognize and acknowledge this particular truth. In the case of leadership hiring, people join the person whom they are going to be working for. They join the organization incidentally. So in that particular case, when they join the person. I've had situations both in my current organization as well as in the earlier organizations. Whenever I had to recruit a person, the first question they ask is, whom am I going to be working for? And today, we don't have a choice. They Google us. They look at our profile on the LinkedIn and say, oh, this guy, I don't want to work for him. Or this guy, or this person, I want to give my right hand to work for him or her. And that's something that we have to recognize and acknowledge. I do not know if there are any students. I'm told that there were some summer interns also who are in this. I take this particular session in some of the B schools, and their personal branding is very, very important because they need to differentiate themselves at the time of the interview. So there are various objectives that are there for this. So let me take you right into the session. The session outline I have for today is basically fourfold. What is the need for significance in today's world? What is your identity? We want to see and define your identity, and then of course we'll get into the what and why of personal branding, and finally we will get into the 7 steps to build your brand. And after I do this session, we will have a Q&A, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So let me launch off into this entire concept of the need for significance. And while we are at that, you have the Twitter ID, Phillips HR Talks. So those of you, I know that in most sessions we ask you to switch your cell phones off. Here we ask you to keep it in silent mode and then tweet about it. So that is the Twitter ID. And of course, my personal Twitter ID is Anand _Pillai. And of course, you can add Phillips and whatever else to it and start tweeting about it. How many of you have read this book, Funky Business? It's a new book. It's written by 2 Stockholm School of Business professors, and this is a quotation pulled out of that book. And what is that quotation? Basically, it says, the surplus society has a surplus of similar companies employing similar people, coming up with similar educational backgrounds, working in similar jobs, coming up with similar ideas, producing similar things with similar prices and in similar quality. Isn't that the dilemma that we are in? We are entering into a world where everything is an equalizer. What is the one differentiator? What's your answer? You. It is you. Why are you? Leveraging, discovering and leveraging your uniqueness. And this happens all the while. This happens in the company. Of course, our own Philips marketing department will say, no, we are not the same. We are different. Sure you are. You think so. You are coming out with similar products. The differentiator is the person who is offering that particular service. So let's move on and get into this identity crisis scenario. This is a story that happened in the year 2003, about 10 years ago. Any of you read this story? This was the story of the 2 Iranian twins. If you had, there are a few hands that are going up. This is the story of 2 twins. I mean, obviously 2 twins. Lale Bijani and Lale Bijani. They were co-joined in the head. The reason why I'm giving you this story is, even if you are identical twins, you are actually different. So if you look at what is given, and this is taken from Wikipedia, you see one of them, Lale, wanted to be a lawyer. Their career choice is different. Lale wanted to become a journalist. Now because they were co-joined in the head, obviously they can only take one career choice. While Lale, if you look at Lale, she wanted to play, among other things, computer games, whereas Lale, she preferred to be a nerd, be behind the computer and do computer programming. Lale described her sister more of an introverted person, whereas she herself was very talkative. This is a case of identical twins, where in the conventional world, you would tend to believe that they are the same, but they are not the same. And of course, they wanted to separate themselves. They wanted to go for a surgical separation. And being based in Singapore, it took a while for them to get into that scenario where they had to separate themselves. And of course, until 29, until they became 29 years old, they were not even given permission. But at that particular time, when the doctors examined the case, they were co-joined in the head, and the surgery was very difficult because one of the veins was common. While they can do whatever, the brain was co-joined, that vein separating was a dangerous or a very fatal situation. And therefore the doctors counseled, the parents counseled, the elders counseled, ministers counseled against this particular operation, because they said this is not a near fatal operation, this is a fatal operation. And they continued to counsel them. But I happened to be in Singapore, and when this particular story got reported, my hair stood on its end, because they signed the indemnity bond taking full recognition of the fatality of what they were going to go in for. But the statement that they wrote there was what made me think differently, and that is the statement. We know we are going to die, but we would rather die as individuals rather than live without an identity. So the question that I want to ask you at the outset is, how many of us are so convinced, are so convicted about living our identity? Now I'll tell you one thing, the world in which we are living in does not encourage us to be ourselves. We are living in a world of conformity, right? It is true in the family, it is true in the office. If you are doing your performance appraisal, I am doing our performance appraisal in our company, and everybody benchmark. Oh, is she like so and so? You know, or is he like so and so? You do the benchmarking. You always want to be like somebody else. And of course, today's family, we have only 2 children. I was a member of a 7-member family. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. My father, you know, whenever we went to, those were the tailoring days, when he went to buy clothes for festivals, he would apply a simple principle. He would buy clothes based on a very simple principle, and that is the economies of scale. And I'll tell you how bad it is. In one of the festivals, as a kid, I went out to play and I found flowers in my shorts. Guess who had gone with my dad? My sister. She liked a particular thing. Dad, I like that. Immediately he said, okay, 20 meters of that. And then that went to the tailor, and he was asked to stitch shirt, pant and whatever else in that one particular fabric. So all that we had to do was wear the festival clothes and go out into the market. Go out into the streets, and everybody would know the members of the Pillai family. It was like Sound of Music. I mean, identical. Identical. Even at home, I tried this, even though I teach this personal branding. I did not know that I myself will be a victim of my own talking. At home, at the dinner table, my son, he takes his own time, he plays around with the food, and then he eats. My daughter, she is quick and businesslike, and she finishes off her dinner very much, or lunch very much in time. So I kind of, out of frustration, blurted out, "Why can't you be like your sister?" He got up and he gave me 16 reasons why he cannot be like this. She is a girl, I am a boy, and blah blah blah. And I said, oh, I got the message. The reason why I am giving you this story is we are living in a world of conformity. The world squeezes us into being somebody else. And therefore, I want to take you and ask you that question. Who are you? If I ask that question just randomly, what would be your answer? So, who are you?
We're from Sahara, I'm an Indian.
Right, so you give, so then what happens is, you give your geographic status, you give your biological status, sort of, so. And I mean, I've done this several times in offices, in campuses. They usually give their identity linked to something else or somebody else. So you give your professional status. But I'm asking, who are you? You as an individual. And for you to recognize and understand who you are, you will not know it until long after you are gone. I'll give you a simple example. When I mention the word Mahatma Gandhi, what comes to your mind? Non-violence, no peace, well, whatever. Did he say that he is that? None of you said he is the husband of Kasturba Gandhi. You don't give us biological status. You give what the person stands for, what his or her identity is. Now that can get formed or conceptualized by default long after you're gone. The objective of this session is for us to discover our uniqueness and leverage our uniqueness. And sometimes what happens is, we think our identity is fused with our looks. You have this long introduction which is almost like an obituary, and then I start off. So when we give the introduction, you know what people say? They say, I mean, you all that is fine. In fact, I introduce myself after that. I'm from Bangalore, but I've lived in Delhi for 27 years until last year, where I moved to Bombay. They say, hey, but you look like a Sri Lankan. I said, wait a minute, yeah. I mean, all this introduction is gone. I also discovered my Sri Lankan origins about 10 years ago. I'll tell you how it happened. I was in this flight, and the Indian cricket team and the Sri Lankan cricket team was in this flight too. So as I was walking along, I was in the flight, and this person was sitting next to me, was mighty thrilled that he was sitting next to me. I said, what is wrong with this guy? You know, I mean, he wants to talk, he wants to make a gesture. And I thought, I mean, this is something different, you know. I mean, it's very, he just wants to, he's so thrilled that he's sitting next to me. And the gestures were so often, if you want to know how often it was once in every 9,842 nanoseconds. And it became so often that I began to question my marital status. Also, you have to understand that this was before Section 370 was officially passed. And I wasn't wearing a pink shirt. It was really becoming awkward. It was very awkward. Sorry, I didn't mean anything. So, it was becoming very awkward. And I said, okay, this must be a mistaken identity. So anyway, the flight went on and we landed in Bangalore. And those days I used to work for HCL Technologies. I went up to the terminal to get my luggage. This guy walked very close to me and he pulled his boarding pass and he said, sir, autograph. I said, not bad. I finally arrived. I signed from one end to the other, Anand Pillai. He looked at my face, he looked at the signature and he said, I'm sorry. I said, what are you sorry for? He did not answer. He looked at the other passengers, and when I looked at the other passengers, lo and behold, my brother from the Sri Lankan cricket team was coming. Any of you know my brother? Yes. It's a long story. Let me cut it short. We got separated at birth. My brother was adopted by the Jaisurya family, and I was adopted by the Pillai family. And the rest is history. So with this discovery, I barged into our office and then I called my friends and I said, guys, I want to make a declaration. So all of them rallied around me. And I said, you know what? I just discovered that Sanat Jaisurya looks like you. You know, one of my friends, he said, Anand, you think you look like Sanat Jaisurya. But fact is, you cannot compare yourself with Sanat Jaisurya. I asked him why. He said, because he's got a better face value. You know, sometimes friends say certain things which leaves you with this feeling, why do I need enemies when I've got friends like that? Make sure you have friends like that too. So I took this friend statement at face value and then I told him, what you are saying is right. It is true that Sanat Jaisurya has got a better face value. Fact is, he's got a bigger face value. Because every day in the morning when he washes his face, he has to go all the way there. Now for me, it starts here. While I was just recovering from this, another friend, he came to me and he said, Anand, see, you think you look like Sanat Jasuria, but fact is, or reality is, there are at least 7 people in the world who look like you. Have you come across that statement? Yeah. I said, man, why do you want to kill my newfound joy? As far as I am concerned, there is one and only one Anand Pillai in the world. There never was one before. There never will be one after. And the friends, they rallied around and they said, Anand, you are getting arrogant. I said, no, I am getting confident. And the reason for my confidence is this. God does not repeat mistakes. Now, having said that, why am I giving you that story? In a personal branding session, I am giving you that story because I want each one of us to realize this. God has made each one of us as a first-class originator. Don't die a second-grade common. The world will conform you to be like somebody else. Your organization will conform you to be like somebody else. Your family will conform you to be like somebody else. Learn to be yourself. Sometimes when you look at your identity, you think your identity is fused with your achievements. You think you are so-and-so. I also thought so. I'll give you another story. This happened in my school. The school in which I graduated, I was the best all-around student at school. While I was the best all-around student, you know, when that announcement was made, and after that announcement was made, we had the school or the classes for a few more days. For some reason, extra classes, whatever, I don't even remember. But I longed to come to school those days. You know why? Because everybody would rally around me. Oh, Anand, best all-around student, best all-around student, pointing finger. Some people will come for autographs, some people will come for photographs. I said, wow, this is really great. Anyway, I passed off, finished school, and after a few years, about 5 years later, I had to come back to school for some signature on a certificate or some letter. I don't even remember why. But the thought of coming back to the school was a great thought because I'm a celebrity. I thought, again, autograph, photograph, all those things will happen. You know, clouds started for me. Understand clouds? Boy, there were a lot of clouds. All those hopes came to a grinding halt at the gate itself when the watchman asked me, who are you? I said, man, what's wrong? You don't remember who I am? I introduced myself. Pettigrew medal holder. Pettigrew was the founder of the school and the all-round student, best all-round student would get that. He did not recognize. So he asked me, whom do you want to see? I said, I want to see the principal. Then the next question he asked me was even more humiliating. He said, do you have an appointment? I got hurt. I mean, I need an appointment. He said, everybody needs an appointment. In fact, he told me, you can't go to the school principal. You will have to go to the PA's room, personal assistance room. So I went to the personal assistance room and I went, wait, I said, listen, there must be somebody who can recognize me. So I went to the staff room. And in the staff room, the chemistry teacher and the English teacher were coming around. I displayed myself. And then I asked, man, do you remember? With a broad smile, the chemistry teacher said, how can you forget? Course returned. Until she completed the sentence. How can we forget you? You're the one who locked us in the room. And that is when I realized you are remembered not for your achievements, but how you have impacted people's lives. Today morning, I tweeted, after all, you are going to be a memory for somebody. After all is gone, make sure that it is a pleasant memory. You are remembered not for your achievements, not for what you have been, but how you have impacted people's lives. So let me introduce you. What is this personal brand that we are talking about and how can we build it? A personal brand is basically a combination of your strengths, of your passion, of your gifts, and of your purpose to the workplace. In my earlier organization, I introduced a psychometric instrument to measure the employee's passion. I hold a patent even now on that. And so one of the questions that we asked was, why do you come to the work? What is your purpose to the workplace? We had a variety of answers. One very interesting answer, and that lady was from Gurgaon. You know, she said, listen, I come to office or I come to work because I want to stay away from my in-laws. My husband comes to office at about 9:30. I come to office, he picks me up, and then afterwards he drops me, and then time. I do not know how many of you have the same reason to come to office. I don't know. But the bottom line is, what is your reason? Your personal branding is basically a combination of your strengths, your passions, your gifts, and your purpose to the workplace. So I want to ask you a question. What is common between all these people? Yes? Passion, okay. All of them have got one common entity. What is that? They've impacted society in a big way. Well, in the personal branding session, the one thing that I want is all of them have a personal brand. Right? It could be positive, it could be negative. But some people have introduced words into the English dictionary. Right? Having said this, we are in the IT industry, right? Now look at the power of personal branding. You know this person on the right side? Dennis Ritchie. Programmers. I started my career as a Unix systems administrator, C programmer. But not many people know him. If you were to recruit a team, do you think he'll get people? I doubt it. You know our friend, Steve Jobs. The difference is, if you look at Steve Jobs, and I do not know how many of you know this, they died within a few days of each other. Steve Jobs died on October 5th. Dennis Ritchie died on October 9th. Did anybody know about his existence? The power of personal branding. If you look at Dennis Ritchie, he was the one who invented or introduced Windows, Unix, C programming, the entire program, generic text. Why is it that one person, an equal genius, if not greater, is not even remembered? The power of personal branding is what is there. I want to give you 7 steps to build your personal brand. The first step for that is you need to believe in yourself. And you need to really be very strong there. The world will ask you to conform yourself to somebody. And it's very, very important that you learn to believe in yourself. And I know, many of us, we are not happy with ourselves. Some of us are too tall, some of us are too short, some of us are too dark, some of us are too light, some of us are too fat, some of us are too thin. We go into all our works. I myself, I had a little bit more weight, so in my earlier entity, I said, okay, fine, I want to lose weight. So what I did was, I worked on it and I lost 14 kilos in 1 year. It was very embarrassing. The reason for that is, except my shoes, nothing else fitted me. I was awkward. I had to change the entire wardrobe. And of course, in a session like this, I would constantly be doing this. So one guy in the front, he said, Anand, isn't it awkward for you to keep on doing this while you're talking? I said, yes, it is awkward. He said, if it is so embarrassing for you to do it, why do you continue to do it? That's because it will be more embarrassing if I don't. That was the awkward situation that I was in. You are not happy about your weight. You are not happy about who you are. We need to appreciate ourselves for who we are. If you want to build your brand, you need to recognize who you are and appreciate yourself for who you are. Early in the morning when I get up and I look at the mirror, I say, wow, what a guy. I love the guy who I see on the other side of the mirror. And I don't know if you are happy, but somebody says, oh, why not like this? No. Look at yourself and be glad, be proud. On my birthday, you know what I do? I call up my mother and say, congratulations, good job, fantastic product. Are you also in that category? Or you say, why am I like this? Why am I so fat? Look at me, I don't know if this is a plain mirror or a concave mirror. Just be proud of yourself. I know the parents also, why can't you be like so-and-so? Parents say that. You're not happy with yourself, always you compare yourself to somebody else's kid. I had my cousin Shaker, and every time he comes home, my mother would say, look at Shaker. Why can't you be like him? And then afterwards, I look at this basket and I say, man, you come to spoil my happiness. And I go to my aunt's place. My aunt tells Shaker, look at Anand. Why can't you be like him? This is always the scenario. I'll tell you one thing, be happy with yourself. Because I'll give you the simple truth in life. said that, who are you? Discover yourself. For you to discover yourself, I'm going to take again this book, Gallup's Now Discover Your Strengths. There are 5 steps that are given how you can discover yourself. Note these down. And what are those 5 steps? The first one is, what is your yearning? If there is a student here, if there is anybody who's building their career, ask yourself, what is my compulsion? What is it that I'm yearning for? That's the first step. Wake up in the middle of the night. What do you want to do? What is that hidden ambition? What is that hidden desire? The second one is, what is your rapid learning? You're learning something, and suddenly in this particular area, you seem to get the steps very quickly. Well, let's see what that is. The third one is, and I'm going to go into each one of the details, the third one is the flow. As you do this, the steps come to you automatically. What is that thing? Put that down. The fourth one is your glimpses of excellence. As you're doing this particular activity, you suddenly get glimpses of excellence and wow, did I do that? And then you say, wow, maybe this is what I'm cut out for. I'll tell you, if I was not into learning and development, I did not start at learning and development. I started as a Unix systems administrator. For 20 years, 22 years, I was a nerd. You understand nerds? I'm sure you have some of them here. You know, I moved from there. I said, listen, what I'm cut out for is something else. And finally, what is your satisfaction? When you're doing that, you're tired. You skip your lunch. You just had a really tough day. And then you do this activity. And then you get such a rush of energy. So, wow, this is what I'm cut out for. That is what gives you moments of satisfaction. Let me give you the expansion. The first one, yearning. During what kind of activities are you naturally drawn? You seem to have a compulsion into doing that. That is an activity. That is an indicator of what your DNA is, of what your personal brand is, what you are cut out for. What is your learning? The next one is, do what activities you seem to pick up quickly. You don't need a training in that. For example, have you come across, any of you have read this book by Howard Gardner, The Theory of Multiple Intelligences? There are a few people. You know, when you read that, there are people with variety of intelligence. Some people have got mechanical intelligence, some people have social intelligence. You know, social intelligence, you mix them in a crowd and they'll win friends easily. They don't have to read this book or go through that course, how to win friends and influence people. They don't have to do that. Yet there are some of us who have to read another book which is yet to be written. How to win back all the friends I influence. You clearly don't have social intelligence. So ask yourself, what is it that comes to you naturally? You seem to pick it up just like that. That's the second indicator. The third indicator is, in what activities did the steps come to you automatically? As if it was hardwired in your brain. You seem to be doing it, and when you're doing it, you get the steps, you get the flow naturally. You know, for example, again going back to Howard Gardner, The Theory of Multiple Intelligence, some people are gifted with mechanical intelligence. What is mechanical intelligence? The ability to repair a gadget, whether you know about it or not. And yours truly is also gifted with mechanical intelligence. What's the proof? The other day, sewing machine was not working, but I fixed it. You know, my wife came and said, "Good job, lot of spare parts left behind." So clearly, I also have a different kind of mechanical intelligence. Are you getting that activity where the steps come to you automatically? The fourth one is glimpses of excellence. During what activities have you had moments of subconscious excellence when you thought, oh, wow, did I do that? Or, oh, how did I do that? I'm sure if you ask yourself that question, you will get that answer. There is some activity that is giving you that moments of excellence where you are surprised at yourself. Oh, that's a fourth activity, fourth pointer. The fifth pointer is satisfaction. During what activities do you get a kick? Either while doing them, and when I mention kick, I'm not talking about the kick that you are used to. You know, I mean, in a particular conference, I said, you know, we've got a lot of grass in our country. I was referring to a different class altogether. So I'm not talking about that kick. During what activities do you get a kick either while doing them or immediately after finishing them when you think, when can I do that activity again? I do not know if you have a policy or a practice of running employee engagement surveys. If you go to that employee engagement survey, the one thing that can make an employee engage is this kind of an employee who is self-actualized in all these 5 areas. Otherwise, you have a square peg in a round hole. The person is having drudgery. And then, of course, I'm sure when you do the employee engagement survey, you've got 3 categories of employees who turn up. Employees who are engaged, employees who are not engaged. And what is the third category? No, not waiting. Actively disengaged employees. You know who these actively disengaged employees are? They are what I call cave dwellers. Constantly against virtually everything. CAV. I'm sure you have employees there. You run any employee engagement program, these guys are going to turn out in the negative. And you know how do you get these CAV cave dwellers? Where does bulk of the cave talk happen? It happens nowhere. The loo talk. And these people are not at all happy. Why? Because they are not self-actualized. They are not having activities in their JD, which is suiting them. They are not worried about the contribution. They are what I call quit but stay employees. Who are quit but stay employees? They mentally quit, but they are staying on till such time they get the next available opportunity. Quit but stay employees. And these people will be negative about anything and everything. You ask them, hard work. Come on, why did you work hard? They'll say, no. Give me one reason why. So, okay, give them an example. Hard work never killed anybody. No, I don't want to take a chance. Or you ask them to come early. I mean, a place like Gurgaon, I mean, you need to come early. This round needs people who need to come early, right? And so you tell them, come early. Why do I need to come early? Okay, give them a problem. The early bird got the worm. No, I don't want to be the one who got up and got caught. You have negativism everywhere. But if you have people in these 5 areas, you can convert those negative cave dwellers, constantly against virtually everything, into positive cave dwellers. What is the positive cave dweller? Constantly adding value everywhere. They look forward to come to office on a Monday. I tell you, I'm originally from Bangalore. Bangalore has got the world's largest heart hospital. I don't know if you know that, Narayana. When my father-in-law was going for his bypass surgery, I wanted to talk to Dr. Devi Shetty because he's a celebrity in his own. So I talked to Dr. Devi Shetty and I asked him a question. And he gave me a very interesting insight. I asked him, what about this heart attacks? He said, more heart attacks occur on a Monday than on any other day of the week. And today is? Watch out. And then, so, why is this? And then he gave me another statistic. And you know what that statistic is? It is twice that of a normal day on certain days. And what are those certain days? Quarterly days. We're not salespeople, so you don't understand what I'm talking about. Or project review, ORM, any of you operations review meeting, or steering committee meeting. Oh man, it goes high. Why? Because of the days of the week. You know, just yesterday was the strongest day of the week. How many of you believe that Sunday was the strongest day of the week? I do. You know why? Because the rest of them are weekdays. So you have the situation where Friday is a poet's day. I mean, come to Friday, Friday is a poet's day. Why is Friday a poet's day? P-O-E-T-S. Push off early, tomorrow is Saturday. So you're already off. You're unbound on a Friday. And then you go on. So you already stopped working somewhere around 3 o'clock on Friday. Your mind is switched off. Saturday you had a ball of a time. Sunday is the strongest day of the week. You have real bindas. Bindas. I mean, take it easy. And then, because English language is a very funny language. Because the bus station is where a bus stops. A train station is where a train stops. You come to office on a Monday morning and what do you see on your desk? Workstation. Does work stop? No. Anticlimax. Anticlimax and boom. And there is a story of a person who had this heart attack, and after he had a heart attack, he was convalescing. While he was convalescing, he won a lottery. So family said, man, how are we going to give this news to the person? He is already in the ICU. So somebody said, listen, do one one thing, why don't you share this information to the priest? Let the priest go there and disclose the information. Okay, fine. The priest went there and he gave a lot of hypothetical situation. You know why a heart attack happens, just for your information? A heart attack happens when you receive information that you are not expecting to receive, and therefore as a result of that there is a sudden rush of energy and your heart pumps in blood, and because you have got cholesterol, there is a blockage there, and boom, backlash, and you have a heart attack. So when this sudden information is there and you are not expected to receive that information, anticlimax happened. So they said, let us tone it down. So the priest went there and told this person and said, okay, you know, and he's there in the ICU. And he's won this lottery for 25 crores. So wow, this is great. And so he said, supposing there is no recession, what will you do? Oh, I'll be very happy. Supposing there is no global warming. Oh, he's giving all these hypothetical situations, impossibility. And then he gave the next one. Supposing your wife and children listen to you. Wow, that's a big one. Oh, I'll be really happy. Supposing your boss gives you a promotion when you're not expecting it. Wow, I'll be very happy. And so he gives all these hypothetical events. And so the priest says, not bad, this person is taking all these unexpected information nicely. And then he gives him the information. Supposing you win a lottery for 25 crores, what will you do? Oh, well, supposing I win a lottery for 25 crores, I'll give half of it to the temple. The next second, the priest died of heart attack. It was an anticlimax. So on a Monday, those of you HR professionals who want to bring in engaged workforce, if you have to bring in engaged workforce, where people get up on a Monday and say, when can I go to office? Those people are people who fulfill these 5 conditions. They are saying, I'm going to go there because that is where I'm going to be self-actualized. Now let's go forward. Having said that, we also need to reinvent ourselves. As I told you, I mean, this complete thing I have personified and personally applied in my own life. I started as a Unix systems administrator, moved on to product development, moved on to program management, moved on into operations, moved on into sales and marketing, and now I'm in HR. Completely reinvented. Why is it necessary that you need to reinvent yourself? I'll give you this example. How many of you, most of your seniors, will know this movie? Diva. How can you not know, irrespective of which age? And 2 contemporaries, right? At that point in time, both of them were as good as each other. And you know this dialogue? You can't forget that, right? That was then.